The Velen Empire had ruled space for 3,000 years. Their ships were beautiful. Their power was endless. They had conquered 17 different species across the galaxy. No one had ever beaten them. No one had ever come close. So when their sensors found a strange ship near the Karas Nebula, they were not worried. They were curious. Admiral Torek sent 40 cruisers to meet this unknown visitor. It was a simple greeting party. Nothing more. Commander Yuna stood alone on the bridge of her ship. The vessel was called the Taigu, and it was small. It was a destroyer-class ship from the Republic of Sol Navy. In simple words, it was a patrol ship. Not big, not special. Just a small military vessel doing its job far from home. Yuna was 32 years old. She had dark eyes that showed nothing of what she felt inside. Her crew numbered 200 people. They had been running silent for 6 months. Running silent meant hiding. It meant watching. It meant learning about this part of space without being seen. Now, they had been seen. Lieutenant Day sat at the tactical station. He was young, maybe 25, with steady hands and a calm voice. He was the first to spot the incoming ships on his screen. "Commander," he said. 40 contacts coming toward us. Unknown ship type. They are surrounding us. Yuna walked to the main display. She studied the approaching vessels carefully. They were beautiful things. Their hulls curved like silver waves. They shined under the distant starlight. Each one was 3 times bigger than the Taigu. 40 ships against one. The math was simple. They were outgunned. They were outnumbered. By any normal thinking, they had already lost. Yuna smiled. "Lieutenant Hannah," she said to her communications officer, "open a channel. All frequencies. Let us say hello to our new friends." Hannah was a woman of 28 with quick fingers and quicker thinking. She worked a console and nodded. "Channel open, Commander." Yuna straightened her uniform. She spoke clearly into the open channel. Her words went out in Galactic Common, the shared language of space. "This is Commander Yuna of the Republic of Sol Navy. You have entered human-claimed territory. State your intentions or be destroyed." Far away, Admiral Torek sat in his command chair aboard his flagship. He was old by Velen standards. He had fought in 100 battles. He had burned worlds. He had ended civilizations. When he heard the human transmission, he laughed. His officers laughed with him. One ship. One tiny ship floating alone in the dark. And its commander was threatening 40 cruisers. The audacity was almost amusing. Almost impressive. "What strange creatures," Torek said. "They must not understand their situation. Show them." He gave the order to fire. Back on the Taigu, Day watched his screen light up with warnings. "Incoming fire," he reported. His voice did not shake. 800 plasma bolts. 800. Enough firepower to destroy a small moon. Enough to turn rock into dust and dust into nothing. Engineer Sue was below deck in the engine room. She was 40 years old with gray in her hair and oil on her hands. She had kept this ship running through everything. Through storms of radiation. Through fields of debris. Through 6 months of silent running. "All systems ready," she reported through the internal channel. "Reactive armor is active. Point defense is online. Shields are holding." The plasma bolts came like a wave of light. They filled the space around the Taigu. They should have ended everything in a single moment. When the light faded, the Taigu was still there, not damaged. Not running away. Simply there. Floating in the same spot as before. The Velen gunners checked their equipment. They thought something was wrong. They fired again. And again. And the human ship absorbed their attacks like water-absorbing stones. On the Velen flagship, Admiral Torek stopped laughing. He leaned forward in his chair. His old eyes narrowed. What is that ship made of? He asked quietly. No one had an answer. Commander Yuna watched the battle unfold on her display. The Velen had fired everything they had. Her ship had taken some hits. The reactive armor had stopped most of it. The point defense guns had shot down the rest. The shields had handled what remained. It was time to respond. "Return fire," she ordered. Her voice was calm, almost bored. "Kinetic batteries. Target their engines. I want survivors." The Taigu was not a large ship. It carried no magic weapons. It had no secret technology. What it had was human engineering. Where the Velen built for beauty, humans built for war. The ship carried railgun batteries. Simple weapons in concept. They took heavy slugs of tungsten metal and accelerated them to incredible speeds. Each slug was the size of a small vehicle. Each one traveled at 3% of the speed of light. "Lieutenant." They pressed the firing button. 12 slugs launched from the Taigu. They crossed the distance to the nearest Velen cruiser in less than a heartbeat. Less than the blink of an eye. The cruiser did not explode. It simply stopped existing. One moment it was there. The next moment it was dust spreading through space. The kinetic energy was so great that the ship came apart at the smallest level. 3 more cruisers followed in the next. 12 seconds. Admiral Torek watched his ships die. His mouth hung open. His hands gripped his chair. This was impossible. This could not be happening. But it was. Commander Yuna stood at the center of her bridge. Her crew worked around her with quiet efficiency. They had trained for this. They had prepared for this. They were humans, and humans had been preparing for war since they first picked up stones and sticks on a small blue planet far away. "Helm," Yuna said. "Bring us about. Weapons, continue firing. Remember, I want survivors. Someone needs to tell the story of what happened here today." The battle had just begun. The battle was not supposed to last long. 40 ships against 1. The math said the human vessel should have died in the first minute. But math did not know humans. Math had never met Commander Yuna. The Taigu moved through space like a dancer. It twisted left. It rolled right. It dove under plasma bolts and climbed over missile swarms. The ship was not elegant like the Velen cruisers. It was ugly. It was boxy. It looked like a metal brick with engines strapped to its back. But it moved like nothing the Velen had ever seen. Lieutenant Day called out targets from his station. His fingers flew across his console. Each touch sent another tungsten slug screaming through space. Each slug found its mark. "Target 4 destroyed," he reported. "Target 5 disabled. Target 6 is retreating." Commander Yuna nodded. She stood with her hands behind her back. Her eyes never left the main display. She watched the enemy formation breaking apart. Ships were pulling back. Ships were running. Ships were dying. "Keep firing," she said. "Aim for engines. I want them alive but helpless." Engineer Sue worked in the engine room below. Sweat ran down her face. Her hands moved without stopping. The ship was taking hits. Small ones. Nothing serious. But she needed to keep everything running smooth. "Power level stable," she reported through the comm. "Weapons are at 90% capacity. We can keep this up for hours." The Taigu had been built for long fights. Human ships were designed to stay in battle for days if needed. They carried extra ammunition. They had backup systems for their backup systems. They were not elegant. They were stubborn. On the Velen side, chaos ruled. Admiral Torek watched from his distant flagship. His screen showed disaster after disaster. Cruisers were dying. Cruisers were running. The formation had collapsed into panic. "How is this happening?" he demanded. His voice cracked with anger and fear. "It is one ship. One small ship. His tactical officer had no answer. The data made no sense. The human vessel was absorbing fire that should destroy it. It was dealing damage that should be impossible. Its weapons were not even energy-based. They were just throwing metal. Primitive, simple, deadly. Their armor, the officer said finally. It is unlike anything in our records. It reacts to impacts. It spreads the energy across the entire hull. And their shields are invisible to our sensors. We cannot even see them. Torek slammed his fist on his chair. Then get closer. Overwhelm them with numbers. But his ships would not get closer. The captains had seen what happened to those who approached. They had watched friends disappear into clouds of dust. They were not eager to follow. Back on the Taigu, Lieutenant Hana monitored enemy communications. She listened to the Velen captains screaming at each other. She heard the fear in their alien voices. They are breaking, she told Commander Yuna. Their coordination is gone. Every ship is acting alone now. Yuna allowed herself a small smile. This was what human tactics were designed to create. Chaos, confusion, fear. A broken enemy was an easy enemy. Continue firing pattern 3, she ordered. Focus on the larger ships. Leave the small ones for last. The railguns sang their deadly song. Tungsten slugs punched through silver hulls. Ships cracked open like eggs. Atmosphere rushed out into the void. Bodies floated in the wreckage. 9 minutes. That was how long the battle lasted. 9 minutes from the first shot to the last dot when it ended. The Taiyu floated among the ruins of what had been a fleet. 26 Velen cruisers were gone. Destroyed. Reduced to metal fragments and frozen bodies. 14 more drifted without power. Their engines were dead. Their weapons were cold. Their crews were alive, but helpless. The Taigu had taken some damage. Scoring marks ran along its forward hull. Black burns marked where plasma had touched metal. But it was still fighting shape. It could continue for hours more if needed. Engineer Sue ran her final checks. Hull integrity at 94%, she reported. All weapons operational. Engines at full capacity. We barely broke a sweat. Commander Yuna walked to the communications station. She looked at Lieutenant Hana and nodded. Open a channel to the surviving ships. Hana pressed the buttons. Channel open. Yuna spoke clearly. Her words would reach every surviving Velen in the area. This is Commander Yuna of the Republic of Sol Navy. The battle is over. You have lost. She paused to let that sink in. Collect your dead. Repair what you can. Return to your admiral. Tell him what you saw here today. Tell him what one human ship did to 40 of his cruisers. Tell him that humans protect what is theirs. She cut the transmission before anyone could respond. Lieutenant Day looked up from his station. His hands were still shaking slightly. The adrenaline was fading now. The reality of what they had done was settling in. Commander, he said, do you think they will listen? Do you think they will leave us alone now? Yuna turned to face her bridge crew. These young people had just fought the battle of their lives. They had faced impossible odds and won. They deserved an honest answer. No, she said simply. They will not leave us alone. They are an empire. Empires do not accept defeat. They will come back. They will come back with more ships, more weapons, more anger. The bridge fell silent. But Yuna continued. Now they know what we are. Now they have felt our teeth. And when they come back, we will be ready. Because that is what humans do. We endure. We adapt. We survive. She turned back to the main display. The Velen survivors were already moving. Collecting bodies. Limping away. Carrying the story of what happened here to the rest of their empire. Set course for home, Commander Yuna ordered. Best speed. "We have a report to make." The Taigu turned away from the battlefield and accelerated into the dark. Behind it, the wreckage of 26 cruisers drifted in silence, a monument to the day the Velen Empire met humanity and learned fear. Admiral Tarek did not believe the first reports. He could not believe them. His mind refused to accept what his officers were telling him. 40 cruisers engaged by a single vessel. 26 destroyed. 14 crippled. The enemy ship barely scratched. Impossible. Lies. Madness. But then the survivors came home. They limped into Velen space with broken ships and broken spirits. They brought recordings. They brought data. They brought the truth. Tarek sat alone in his quarters and watched the battle footage. He watched it 3 times, then 5 times, then 10. Each viewing made his blood run colder. The human ship moved like nothing in Velen records. It did not dodge fire the way other species did. It simply accepted hits and kept fighting. Its armor ate plasma bolts like candy. Its shields were invisible ghosts that laughed at Velen weapons and those railguns. Those primitive, brutal, terrible railguns. Tarek had seen weapons before. Energy beams that could slice through steel. Plasma cannons that burned at the temperature of stars. Elegant weapons for civilized species. The humans used rocks. They threw rocks at incredible speeds. And those rocks hit harder than anything Tarek had ever witnessed. He summoned High Council. The 7 elder admirals gathered in the obsidian chamber beneath the capital world. This room had seen many meetings over the centuries. Wars had been planned here. Civilizations had been sentenced to death here. The future of entire species had been decided within these black walls. Now, the admirals watched the battle recording in complete silence. The footage ended. No one spoke for a long moment. Admiral Vex was the first to find her voice. She was ancient by Velen standards. She had commanded fleets before Tarek was born. Her scales had faded from silver to gray with age. But her mind was still sharp as any blade. "One ship," she said. Her voice was hoarse. "A vessel half the size of our standard cruiser. It fought 40 of our ships and won." "It was not fighting," another admiral corrected. His name was Coral, and he was known for his analytical mind. Watch the recording again. Look at the pattern of fire. The human commander was choosing her targets carefully. She crippled ships she could have destroyed. She left witnesses alive. The room fell silent again as they considered this. She was teaching. Carl continued. She wanted survivors. She wanted us to see this footage. She wanted this meeting to happen. Tarek felt cold spread through his body. The human commander had planned for this. Every shot. Every kill. Every survivor. It was all calculated to send a message. What do we know about these humans? He demanded an aide step forward with a data tablet. He was young and nervous. His hands shook as he read his report. The species originated on a small planet called Earth, third rock from an unremarkable star and unremarkable system. They have only been traveling between stars for about 300 of their years. They control 37 star systems. No significant resources. No notable technology advantages. He paused and swallowed hard. "And the ship that attacked us?" Tarek asked. "Our analysts have classified it based on captured communications." The aide's voice dropped. "In human naval terms, it is called a destroyer, a patrol vessel. Commander Yuna called it a reconnaissance ship. In their military structure, it is among the smallest combat classes they operate." The silence that followed was deafening. Admiral Vex stood slowly from her chair. Her old bones creaked. Her eyes were fixed on the frozen image of the Taigu on the display screen. "Let me understand this correctly," she said carefully. "Their smallest warship, their patrol boat, their little scout vessel, This is what destroyed 26 of our cruisers. Yes, Admiral. Then what are their battleships like? What are their dreadnoughts capable of? No one had an answer. Torek stood as well. His mind was racing. 3,000 years of conquest. 17 species crushed under Velen boots. Hundreds of worlds brought to heel. They had never lost. They had never faced anything they could not overwhelm with superior numbers. But numbers had not saved his cruisers. Numbers had not stopped those railgun slugs. Numbers were meaningless against an enemy who could kill faster than you could count. We need more information, he said finally. We need to understand what we are facing. Admiral Coral shook his head. What we are facing is clear. We are facing a species that builds weapons like we build art. Their ships are not designed for beauty or efficiency. They are designed for one purpose, to kill. Then we build more ships, another admiral suggested. We outnumber them. We have millions of vessels. They have thousands at most. And what good are millions of ships if they die by the dozens in minutes? Bax asked sharply. We need to rethink everything. Our tactics. Our weapons. Our very understanding of war. Torek listened to his colleagues argue. He watched the recording play again on the display. He saw the Taigu moving through the chaos. He saw Commander Yuna standing calm on her bridge while fire rained around her. She had not been afraid. Not for a single moment. She had known exactly what would happen. She had known her ship could win. She had known with absolute certainty. That confidence scared Torek more than the weapons. More than the armor. More than the railguns. Because that confidence meant something. It meant this was not luck. It was not surprise. It was not a fluke. The humans had known they would win. They had known from the start. Torek made his decision. Pride demanded response. The Empire could not let this insult stand. One defeat, no matter how devastating, could not go unanswered. Assemble the Armada, he ordered. Every available ship. Every weapon we have. We will find these humans. We will find their home. And we will show them what the violent Empire truly is. The other admirals nodded. This was the only option. Fight or accept shame. Attack or appear weak. None of them noticed the cold feeling in their hearts. None of them acknowledged the whisper of doubt in their minds. None of them wanted to admit that they were afraid. The Velen Armada took 3 weeks to assemble. Ships came from every corner of the Empire. Cruisers, destroyers, carriers, battleships. The might of 3,000 years gathered in one place. 1,200 capital ships. 8,000 cruisers. Fighters beyond counting. It was the largest fleet ever assembled in Velen history. It was enough firepower to burn worlds, to end civilizations, to reshape the galaxy itself. Admiral Torek stood on the bridge of his flagship and watched his armada form around him. Pride swelled in his chest. This was power. This was strength. This would teach the humans their place. They traced the human ship's path back toward soul space. 3 weeks of travel brought them to the border of human territory. 37 star systems. A tiny empire. A nothing people. The first thing they found was a station that had floated alone near a barren moon. A small thing. Metal and glass and blinking lights. It looked like a research post. A way station. Something unimportant. Lieutenant. Commander Jin was on duty when the alarms started screaming. Jin was 38 years old. He spent 15 years in border patrol. Quiet work. Boring work. He spent most of his shifts reading poetry and drinking tea. He expected to spend the next 15 years the same way. His sensor operator changed those expectations. Ensign Bora was 22, fresh from the academy, full of energy and nerves. Her hands were shaking when she made her report. "Sir, contacts incoming. multiple contacts. She checked her readings twice, 3 times. Her voice cracked. Thousands of them, sir. I count over 9,000 vessels. Jin set down his tea. He walked to her station and looked at the display. The screen was filled with red dots. Enemy contacts covered the entire sector. It looked like a disease spreading across the stars. He said. Bora looked up at him. Sir, what do we do? Jin considered the question. Outpost 7 had a crew of 40 people. They had basic defense systems, some automated guns, some missile batteries, a few tricks the engineers had installed. Against 9,000 enemy ships. He opened a channel to Sol Command. This is Station Outpost 7, he reported calmly. We have visitors. Looks like the whole Velen Navy showed up, requesting instructions. The response came from Admiral Tay. She commanded the 3rd Fleet. Her voice was calm, almost bored. Jin had always liked that about her. Outpost 7, hold position. We are sending response elements. Estimated arrival time is 4 hours. Can you hold? Jin looked at his crew of 40, looked at his modest little station, looked at the 1,200 capital ships bearing down on them. We will manage, he said. He cut the channel and turned to his people. They were scared. He could see it in their eyes. They were young. Most of them had never seen combat. They had signed up for border patrol, for quiet duty, for peace. But they were human, and humans did not run. Listen up, Jin said. His voice was steady, confident. He did not feel steady or confident, but his crew needed to believe he was. The fleet is coming. We just need the hold for 4 hours. 4 hours is nothing. We can do this. Sir, one of his officers said, there are over 1,000 capital ships out there. We are one station. Jin smiled. Then they should have brought more ships. The Velen Armada approached in standard formation. Confident, overwhelming. They had crushed stations before. They had burned outposts. This would be quick work. The station's defense grid came online. Outpost 7 was a standard border station. Nothing special, nothing unique. Except human engineers never built anything without thinking about the worst case. And the worst case was exactly this. The automated guns opened fire first. Railgun batteries tracked the fastest approaching fighters. Tungsten slugs ripped through vellum metal like paper through water. Explosions lit the darkness. Then the missiles launched. Not fancy missiles, not elegant weapons. Just fast metal tubes filled with explosives, guided by simple computers that never missed. The Velen fighters died in waves. Hundreds in the first minute. Thousands in the first 10 minutes. They kept coming. There were always more. Jin watched from the command center. He directed power to different systems. He shifted defensive priorities. He played the station like an instrument of death. Kinetic denial system is ready, Engineer Mira reported. She was the oldest member of the crew. 50 years, gray hair, steady hands. Should I activate it? Wait, Jin said. Let them get closer. The Velen cruisers pushed forward. They fired on the station. Energy beams struck the outer hull. The station shook. Alarms sounded. But the structure held. Human stations were built like human ships. Stubborn, tough, hard to kill. Now, Jin said. The kinetic denial system was a simple concept. A ring of railguns surrounding the station. They fired not at specific targets, but at space itself. A wall of tungsten slugs that turned a sphere around the station into a death zone. Anything that entered that sphere simply stopped existing. Velen cruisers pushed into the zone. They did not push back out. They became expanding clouds of debris, metal and bodies spreading through the void. Admiral Torek watched from his flagship. His confidence was cracking. His certainty was fading. One station, 40 crew, and his armada was bleeding. Push harder, he ordered. Overwhelm them with numbers. They cannot have unlimited ammunition. He was wrong. 3 hours passed. Then 4. The station held. The wreckage around it grew into a field of death that stretched for 100 kilometers in every direction. Then the Third Fleet arrived. Admiral Tay brought 200 ships. 200 human warships against over 10,000 Velen vessels. The math was still terrible. The odds were still impossible, but humans had never learned to count properly. The Third Fleet hit the Velen Armada from behind. Railguns sang, missiles flew. Human ships moved in formations that seemed chaotic, but worked with perfect coordination. Admiral Tay stood on her bridge and smiled. Signal Outpost 7. Tell Lieutenant Commander Jin he did good work. Tell him drinks are on me when this is over. Jin received the message. He leaned back in his chair. His station was battered. His crew was exhausted, but they were alive. They had held. Ensign Bora, he said, how many enemy ships did we destroy? She checked her numbers with trembling fingers. Our confirmed kills number 347, sir. Plus another 200 probable. Jin nodded. 40 people. 1 station. Over 500 enemy ships. Not bad for a boring border post. The real battle was just beginning. But the humans had already won something more important than the fight. They had won the story. The Battle of Outpost 7 would be remembered across 100 civilizations. Songs would be written about it. Stories would be told. Children would grow up hearing about the day the Velen Empire learned fear. But in the moment, it was simply chaos. Admiral Tay commanded her 200 ships with cold precision. The Third Fleet cut into the Velen Armada like a knife through soft meat. Human vessels moved in patterns that made no sense to the enemy. They covered each other. They rotated positions. When one ship took damage, it fell back. A fresh ship took its place. The Velen fought with numbers. The humans fought with teamwork. Enemy flagship is holding position at the rear. Ty's tactical officer reported. Admiral Torek is directing the battle from there. Tay nodded. Smart. He learned something from his first defeat. But it will not save him. The battle raged for hours. Thousands of ships filled space with fire and death. Wreckage spread like clouds. Bodies drifted in the void. The Velen kept pushing forward with their endless numbers. The humans kept grinding them down with their terrible weapons. Then the mandate arrived. It came out of faster than light. Travel like a monster emerging from the dark. 3 kilometers of armored hull. Weapons bristling from every surface. The biggest ship any Velen had ever seen. Captain Hyan commanded from the central bridge. She was 50 years old. Scars marked her face from a dozen campaigns. Her eyes were hard as steel. Her voice was calm as death. All batteries, she ordered. Free fire. The mandate was a dreadnought. In human naval terms, it was 1 step below the largest class. It carried 24 main guns. Each gun fired projectiles that could punch through a capital ship and keep going. Each gun could fire every 15 seconds. The first volley hit the Velen center. 4 capital ships died instantly. The slugs went through their shields like they did not exist. They went through their armor like it was made of paper. They went through one ship and hit the next ship behind it. Admiral Tarek watched from his flagship. His screen showed disaster. His fleet was dying. His empire was bleeding. What is that thing? He whispered. His tactical officer checked his sensors. Checked again. His hands were shaking too hard to read the data properly. It is classified as a dreadnought, Admiral. Human heavy combat vessel. Torek remembered the Taigu, the small ship that had started everything. The destroyer that had killed 26 cruisers. He remembered thinking that was the worst humanity had to offer. He had been so wrong. Captain Hyan directed her ship through the chaos. The mandate absorbed fire that would have destroyed lesser vessels. Its armor was thick as city walls. Its shields were mountains of energy. It simply did not care about Velen weapons. Target their capital ships first, Hyan ordered. Break their formation. Make them run. The main guns fired again. And again. Each volley killed multiple ships. Each passing minute saw the Velen numbers drop dot around the Mandate. The Third Fleet pressed their attack. 200 ships working as one creature. They herded Velen vessels toward the dreadnought. They pushed enemies into kill zones. They turned the battle into a slaughter. Admiral Torek made his decision. Fall back, he ordered. All ships fall back. Retreat to Velen space. Pride was dead. Honor was meaningless. Survival was everything. The Velen Armada broke and ran. Ships fled in every direction. The organized formation collapsed into a mob of terrified vessels, all racing for safety. The humans let most of them go. Torek's flagship was not so lucky. The Mandate tracked it. The dreadnought accelerated toward the fleeing vessel with terrible purpose. Its guns targeted the engines. 1 shot, 2 shots. The flagship slowed, stopped, drifted. Captain Hyan opened a channel. Admiral Torek, she said. Her voice was flat, emotionless. Your flagship is disabled. Your fleet is destroyed. You have lost. Torek sat in his chair on the darkened bridge. Emergency lights flashed red around him. His officers were dead or dying. His empire's greatest armada had been broken in a single day. What do you want? He asked. His voice cracked. I want you to live, Hyan answered. I want you to return to your council. I want you to tell them what happened here. I want you to make sure every species in this galaxy knows what they will face if they threaten humanity. She cut the channel. The Mandate turned away. It left the flagship drifting in space. Damaged but alive. A messenger carrying the worst news the Velen Empire had ever received. Torek recorded his final report. His hands were numb. His voice was hollow. Do not engage the humans. Do not threaten the humans. Do not look at the humans in a way they might find hostile. We thought ourselves conquerors. We were children playing with fire. They are the fire. The message was found when rescue ships came. It was transmitted across Velen space. Within months, it had spread to other civilizations. Within a year, every spacefaring species in the galaxy had heard it. The humans had won more than a battle. They had won a reputation. Commander Yuna heard about the victory while on patrol. She was aboard the Taigu, running standard routes along the new border. The Velen had abandoned 30 systems in their retreat. Human territory had nearly doubled overnight. Lieutenant Hana brought her the news. She played some of the intercepted alien communications. They are calling us monsters, Hana said. There was worry in her voice. They think we are dangerous beyond reason. Yuna listened to the alien voices. Fear dripped from every word. Terror colored every transmission. The entire galaxy was watching humanity in trembling. She thought about Earth, about the long history of her species, about the wars and the plagues and the disasters that had nearly ended them 100 times, about the stubborn refusal to die that ran through human blood like fire. Good, she said finally. Monsters do not have to fight. Monsters just have to exist. And as long as they fear us, they will leave us alone. She returned to her duties. The Taigu sailed on through the dark between stars. A small ship carrying the weight of a terrible reputation across the galaxy. Armadas learned to change course when they detected human vessels. Not because humans were cruel. Not because humans were evil. Because humans were prepared. And that made all the difference. The stars had many dangers. Many threats. Many species that looked at weaker neighbors and saw only prey. But no one looked at humanity that way. Not anymore. In the silence of space, The Taigu continued its patrol. Commander Yuna watched the stars through her bridge windows. Somewhere out there, enemies were learning to be afraid. That was enough. That was everything Dot and humanity sailed on.